Hey everyone, this is Ben from the Game Brain Podcast, and I wanted to talk today about the Salton Sea. The designer is David Bernal, and the artist is Amelia Sales, or Salas. I totally apologize if I mispronounced your name. I wanted to talk about this game. It's not a review, but I feel like there's not a lot of people talking about this game, and actually some of the people who have talked about it have been sort of down on it, and I think it's a really good game. I've only played it once. So this is a first impression, as they would say, but I want to share the things that I thought about on this first game because I think it's actually deserving more attention than it is getting. Let me tell you about this game. It takes place in the Salton Sea, which is a real body of water here in Southern California. This game really wants to think about how we mine for lithium, get geothermal energy, clean future, etc., etc., etc. So that's basically what we're doing here. The general loop of the game is that we have rock and we can drill through the rock, and as we drill lower through the rock, we can encounter brine, and we like that brine because then we can extract the brine and we put it in our little warehouse, and we can build that warehouse out by going up this certain track. We take that brine and we convert that brine into geothermal energy, or we convert it into lithium batteries. And we take those things and maybe we sell them to corporations. There are 3 corporations in the game, and as you sell them to the corporations values increase. And by the way, another thing you can do is buy stocks in those corporations. So as those corporations do better, then your stock portfolio does better. This is not 18xx, it's not wild, it's a pretty basic rudimentary stock system, but it's fun. Another thing you can do with your resources is you can fulfill contracts, the age-old Euro game thing. Fulfilling contracts gets you money, gets you company growth, all that fun stuff. So that's basically the majority of what you're doing. And then there's other fun things. Maybe if you drill too much, you might ruin your drill. Or if you try to push your workers too hard or your machinery, you're gonna have problems with processing your brine into your other things. So there's all these things you have to balance. But the real shtick of this game, and this is where the game really shines, this is where the game comes to life, and that's why it's worth talking about, is this idea that your actions are money. Not that they cost money, they are money. You could make an argument that they cost money, but they don't cost money. They kind of do. So here's the thing. On your player board, that's where you take the bulk of your actions. All your actions are there. You put a meeple on your player board, you do your action. But you can also get these cards, and the cards are kind of like better versions of the actions on your player board. So what you do is, instead of doing your basic version of the action, like a sad drilling action from your player board, you do a fancy drilling action from your playing card. And so what you do is you play the card out of your hand and you put a meeple on it, and you've now done it. And then at the end of the round, when you get your workers back, you also get your action cards back. But the thing is, everything in this game costs money. And these action cards that I just talked about, on the other side of them, they have financial values. So when you are spending money in this game to do things, you are also actively getting rid of these actions, these better actions than what's on the board. And the game is all about how long do you keep these actions, when do you sacrifice them to make that essential purchase, and therein lies the central tension. It is a beautiful, beautiful, agonizing, cruel, brutal tension, but it is what makes this game come alive from just your standard, get resources, upgrade resources, turn them in for contracts and for money, yada, 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 yada. I have to say, I really enjoyed my initial play of this game, which is why I felt compelled to make this video. I also had some free time. So, rather than doing laundry, I decided to make a board game video. It's just what happens. Here are the things that I really liked about the game on the first go around. Okay, those tough choices, I just mentioned them. They are so good. They're so hard. There are all these action cards. There's a big market. You're looking at them. You're saying, ooh, if I could nab that card, then I could make this action that much sweeter, but I have to get there before someone else does. And the other thing is, you don't just take cards in this game. Because cards are money, if you ever have a situation where you earn like $2, you get to take $2 worth of action cards. So that might be, I take 2 $1 cards. Well, that's really all it would be. But later on, maybe you make $6. So is $6 going to be 6 single dollar cards, or they're going to be to $3 cards, and the $3 cards have better actions than the $1 cards, or maybe I take a $5 card and a $1 card, and fives are the best. You're mixing and matching, you're figuring it out. But the peril with a $5 card is that whenever you pay for things in this game, there's no change. So if something requires a $3 payment and you only have a 5, you're not only getting rid of your sweet $5 action, you're actually overpaying and you're not getting anything back for it. It is killer. It is so killer. You really don't understand. It is so hard. My friends and I, we played it last night. We're all sitting around the table. It was like groan after groan after groan. And there were so many times where I just had to make this very important purchase and I had to spend everything in my hands. And then it was all to set up my next turn. And then I went to do my next turn and I was like, oh crap, my big next turn, I just got rid of it by paying for the turn to set it up. It is really hard. Some people may have a difficult time with that, and then that may translate to a bad time at the table. And to those people, well, that sucks. There's nothing else I can say, 'cause that sucks. But for people like me, I'm like, it's like awesome. So I'm sorry you have a bad time with that experience, because we all can't have fun with the same experiences. But for me, if you're like me, if you think you're like me, then awesome, you're gonna love it. Also, money is so tight in this game. It is so tight, clearly by design. They don't want you to have, I think, a lot of money, because if you have a lot of money, it's not that hard, I think, to make decisions between like how you manage these cards. Because if you have your really sweet card, you're like, well, I can just hold on to this because I'll get money in a different way and I'll spend that money and I'll just build out my actions, which is fun in its own way. But they make the money in this game, it's so hard. Like, you know, some games you look at it, you're like, oh, well, money is tight. Like, ooh, that costs like $8. That's expensive. A $2 purchase in this game feels extraordinary. You're like, oh my God. There were times in this game where I was like, all I need is to generate $4. How do I do this? How do I make $4? This game is all about tempo. You know, you want to have a good tempo of like bringing money in, but retaining your actions. You want to have enough money to be able to do things. You want to have enough action cards to be able to do things like in a better way than your basic actions. When you fall out of that tempo, this game is very unforgiving, and that's something you also need to know about. I don't really mind unforgiving in a game that I'm enjoying. If it's a game I don't like and it's unforgiving, I'm like, screw this game. Why are you being mean to me when I already don't like you? But I like this game. So when it's unforgiving, I'm like, yes, do it to me. I love it. But man, in that first game session, I cannibalized my engine a little bit too much, and late in the game, it was not easy to make money, and my game kind of ground to a halt, and my entire last round was actually me not doing really anything. I don't hold that against the game. I hold that against me. This is a game that's going to require a learning curve. It's going to require you getting to understand the tempo. I think I am far, far away from learning it. I lost by a country mile, but I had a great time with it. You have to be careful about cannibalizing your engine. I mean, that's really what this game is all about. It was very reminiscent of Evacuation to me, which is a game where you start off with an engine and then you tear it down, you build it back up again. You never really start out with an engine in this game. You just start off just sad, and then you have moments of glory, and then you're sad again. That was my experience. Actually, other people at the table flourished, but everyone felt like they had a foot on their neck the entire time. And if that sounds fun to you, this is going to be a great game for you. Again, some people will say, not my jam, but this was very much my jam. Very jam forward. So you know what? Also, it's a tiny game in terms of like the box. It's like this big. It's the size of my face. When you play it, it takes up much more space than you'd expect. But you do have that effect of like, wow, I can't believe there's so much game in this tiny, tiny box. I don't know why we like that. It feels like you've gotten a really good value out of something. Like, you know, there's those Kickstarters that come in like giant boxes that look like they're from IKEA and they have IKEA furniture in them and they're about as heavy. It feels like you have something that would have come out of that box, but you only paid like $40 for a little box. You're like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Also, you know, if you look at the videos of this game, it looks bland. There's no better way to put it. It just looks like a whole bunch of like white and lines, but in person it's actually much nicer looking. Like the central board has some very lovely art. I will say the cards are a little clinical looking. They are kind of just like, the player boards are also not inviting. It would have been nice to get a little bit more of the art that's on the main board throughout some of the components, just to draw us in, because this is a dry theme, ironically, since we're talking about a body of water. It's dry, but that's also what's kind of happening to the real Salton Sea. It's just shrinking and dying out. It's like look it up. It's a very sad story. I think the theme will be hard for some people to get into. Again, I didn't really care because the mechanics were really fun. I really enjoyed it. I did not feel necessarily like I was drilling into the Salton Sea and I was exploring new frontiers of clean energy. I did not feel that, and that's okay. I think I can survive without feeling that. But, one downside with these games that come in a smaller box, it's fun that it's a smaller box, takes up less space, it's using less materials, etc., etc. But the downside is that some of the stuff is so small. Like your point tracker is like a teeny tiny little thing. It's like literally smaller than an M&M, okay? And like one little shake and those things fall off that scoring track. It's a little too restrictive. I would have been happy if they just had another piece of cardboard that you fold out and put elsewhere on the table that's just like a larger score tracker. It's just too small. Iconography can be really small. I feel youthful. My thinning hair says otherwise, and my eyes are also sending me in the wrong direction. It was very difficult for me to read several of the icons. That's really annoying. By the way, great rule book. I mean, even though the font in some areas is negative 45 pixels, I mean, it's so tiny, but they have examples for everything, very clear. Anytime we have a question, we can find it easily. The information is in generally intuitive places. I think there was only one ambiguity, never had to go to BGG, so huge applause for that rulebook. And lastly, the game really takes place with micro turns, which is a thing that some people really don't like. I don't have a problem with micro turns. I don't see what's wrong with them. They're just turns, in my opinion. But one thing that a friend did bring up is the fact that there are micro turns, and then when it gets to your micro turn, there's a lot of stuff to think about. And so I think some people get frustrated that you are waiting a little bit of time to get back to your turn and then you do one small thing. But you know what? I think that also this is a game that has a big learning curve, and as people learn it, things will move swifter. I think that there's a lot of upside with this game. There's a lot to explore. I just think, after a first impression, this is a chunky, meaty game that is really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope that when I say things like, oh, this game isn't meant for everyone, no one takes that as this game is a piece of crap. Because I feel like sometimes people do that. When you say, oh, well, this game isn't for everyone, it doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's really, really good. I just know that there will be certain people that this will not appeal to. And that's okay, because the people that it will appeal to are going to really enjoy it a lot, I think. So I say, give it a try. You may really, really enjoy it. And that's what I have to say about the Salton Sea.